South Korea's central bank has held its policy rate steady at 3.5% for an entire year. And another rate freeze appears to be on the way this week for the 9th straight time. Let's turn to Professor Song Soo-young for more. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Is another 3.5% rate freeze the most likely scenario? Is the continued slowdown in the inflation rate not enough?
As long as the disinflation continues, we anticipate the Bank of Korea should reduce the interest rate because years ago, the chairman of BOK has preemptively increased the interest rate before the Federal Reserve in U.S. has increased the federal funds rate. So in that, to be coherent, in order to remain coherent, I think in Korea, South Korean economy has suffered so much from some declining GDP growth rate. Clearly, in the last year, we have seen that 1.3% of the GDP growth rate is really impressively weak. So which means even though it has recorded a positive growth rate, still it is in some kind of very close to recession situation. So they have to consider to support the economy to grow, to put the economy in the track of growing faster or higher than the 1% of percentage growth rate. Of course, they expect 2.3% growth rate for the upcoming year, in 2024, but still it is not enough. So I hope the interest rate to be reduced sooner.
Right, Professor Song, I do have to point out South Korea's consumer inflation slowed to a 6-month low last month, but the finance minister, Choi Sang-mok, noted inflation might rebound to around 3% in February this month and also next month. Is that how it's looking now?
Yeah, clearly there is some uncertainty about the war which was waged by Israel, the invasion of Gaza. But however, this morning I have seen that it is also reported that the United States, they call upon some Security Council to step in and rein in the invasion of Israel to block Israel from engaging war in Gaza and spreading out in the Middle East and worldwide. So that signal indicates that the United States may not allow Israel from spreading and increasing the war and spreading out in the negative impact on the world economy. So to that regard, I don't think much of a threat will be upcoming for the inflation, and the U.S. and the EU and other countries make an effort to stabilize the geopolitical situation in Middle East, and that will be accomplished.
Well, speaking of concerns and uncertainties, there are voices of concern that caution about the so-called last mile. Is this a concern really at this moment?
Yeah, I think I heard that is proposed by the Schnabel, the member of the European Central Bank, Isabel Schnabel. But I think it is a little bit inappropriate metaphor to describe the current situation, because the last mile implies that there is a finish line. So 2% of interest, 2% inflation rate cannot be a finish line, because the economy always go on some dynamic situation and the uncertainty is lurking. Therefore, the Federal Reserve and the central bank always be prepared to intervene and rein in and adjust interest rate to make the economy as stable as possible. So that means that as long as the net neutral rate of interest remains lower than 2%, then the central bank make efforts to reduce the interest rate as low as possible, as long as it does not trigger the inflation to start again. So to that regard, I think 2% target is not finish line, and last mile is kind of deliver some kind of impression that once we reach there, then everything is solved. No, I don't think so, because still it needs monetary policy remain vigilant and persevere, and also fiscal policy always should be accompanied to help the economy to fit into growing track. That is a very important aspect we have to consider for the central bank.
That's a great point. Now, the Bank of Korea has cited high inflation, like you mentioned, as one of the main reasons for a rate freeze. That's what the central bank says. But some experts point out household debt is also playing a significant role as to why the BOK is leaving the rate unchanged. Professor Song, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I'm a little bit critical of the Bank of Korea's perspective, because in South Korea, the 2022, year over 2022, in July, they have reached the 6.8%, the highest inflation rate. That has been declined and reached the 23 July, they have reached the 2.4%, and there is a slight reflation, and clearly there is a bumpy road for the inflation. But clearly, the overall moving average and the trend of inflation rate is declining. Of course, in the European Union, they have recorded 10% of inflation rate, much higher than us. So to that regard, we don't have to increase the interest rate as much as the European Union or US has increased, but we need to decrease the interest rate to support our economy, to put into the growth rate of the GDP. Otherwise, because US has enjoyed a very strong economy, growth rate of GDP is very strong. However, in the European Union is very weak, because for recently, just the days ago, the France and other countries, they have reduced the prospect of 2024 GDP growth rate by as much as a half percentage points. So that implies that they need. The reason why the EU has suffered so much from some very slowing economic return or even negative growth rate of the GDP, because they do not use on much of a fiscal policy. They need some expansionary policy, and also interest rate should be adjusted accordingly with the declining of inflation rate.
All right, Professor Song, we appreciate your insight this morning. You have a wonderful day.
Thank you.